I've leveled up some of the best and most well-designed jobs in Final Fantasy XIV. I just reached level 80 with the Red Mage, so now I must ask myself the question, is it one of the best? That's what we're going to talk about in my impressions today. Let's get started. First things first, I like the Red Mage, but I can't shake the feeling that its kit hasn't reached its full potential, and for that reason I've been having a hard time enjoying it. The basic concept for the Red Mage is very simple. It casts black and white magic spells, and those spells generate mana for their respective color. When you have enough black and white mana, you can spend it on a powerful melee combo that combos into your ultimate black or white magic spell, Ver Flare or Ver Holy, which can then be followed up by your ultimate unaspected spell, Scorch. That core gameplay loop is very engaging, and I find it enjoyable. The Red Mage feels very close to being a melee mage, but I'd say it leans more into its ranged attacks, and that's cool. My problem comes in with a lot of the stuff that's built around the core gameplay loop of the job. The two most underwhelming abilities for me were Flesh and Contra Sixth. Their damage is fine, but they don't feel well integrated into the Red Mage's kit, and this is because all they do is deal damage. I think it's okay to have off-global cooldown abilities that just do damage and nothing else, but in the case of the Red Mage, Flesh, and Contra Sixth aren't bringing enough identity to the table. If we look at the Dragoon for comparison, it has two abilities that just do damage and don't impact any of the job's mechanics. These abilities are Spine Shatter Dive and Dragonfire Dive. I like these abilities a lot because they play into the identity of the Dragoon, a dragon slayer that jumps into the air and slams down onto its enemies. Flesh and Contra just summon spectral blades, which, sure, they look cool, but what does that have to do with the Red Mage? Well, by my estimation, these spectral blades should be dealing unaspected damage, and to bring them more in line with the other unaspected spells in the Red Mage's kit, I would have them generate a small amount of black and white mana. While we're on the subject of black and white mana, I can't shake the feeling that Red Mage generates black and white mana a little bit too slow, which is part of the reason why I think Flesh and Contra 6 would benefit from having a small mana generation component attached to them. The slowish rate of mana generation is compounded by the fact that the level 60 mana generating ability Manification has a 110 second cooldown. Now, I do like the current implementation of Manification. It doubles the current black and white mana levels, and its additional effect resets core, displacement, and engagement recast timers. It also increases damage dealt by a very small 5% for 10 seconds, which is just enough time to finish your melee combo, Ver Arrow or Ver Holy, and Scorch. But 110 seconds just feels a little bit too long. Am I asking for too much for the cooldown to be lowered? Maybe, but I would enjoy the Red Mage more if Manification had a 90-second cooldown or a 60-second cooldown. We're getting into some very subjective territory here, but part of what makes me enjoy a job is how often you get to engage with the core gameplay loop. I'm sure you don't want me to continue referring to the Dragoon, so this time I'm going to turn my attention to the Gunbreaker. The Gunbreaker engages with its most exciting mechanic, the Gnashing Fang and Continuation combo, every 30 seconds. And every 60 seconds, you get to couple the Gnashing Fang Continuation combo with a damage buff and a couple of extra abilities. I think the Red Mage could learn from this. If their resource generation was a little bit faster, they could engage with their melee combo more consistently. Something else that griped me a lot is the shared cooldown of Displacement and Engagement. Displacement is a 15-meter backstep that delivers an attack with a potency of 200, and Engagement is a melee range ability that delivers an attack with a potency of 150. The reason for these cooldowns being shared feels arbitrary, or at the very least, it's poorly thought out. I like the idea of having to choose between an evasive ability that deals damage or an ability that just deals damage, but the potencies feel like they're reversed. If I'm going to be a squishy caster, then being in melee range should be incentivized with more damage. I also generally don't like movement abilities that are used for something other than movement, and again, Displacement is used specifically for its damage output. Then again, maybe I just need to learn to love the dramatic backflip. My last set of issues with the Red Mage comes from its area damage rotation. This is another aspect of its kit that feels like it's missing something. For the single target side of things, you alternate between casting Jolt and Ver Thunder and Jolt and Ver Arrow. Each cast of Ver Thunder or Ver Arrow has a chance to unlock Ver Fire or Ver Stone respectively, and those abilities help you generate black and white mana faster. The AoE rotation for the Red Mage does not have access to area damage versions of Ver Fire and Ver Stone, and because of that, resource generation during large dungeon pulls feels ridiculously slow. This again ties in with the idea that I'm not getting to engage with my gameplay loop frequently enough. The Red Mage also has an area damage version of its melee combo, but it's a single hit instead of a full combo. Adding in the area damage versions of Ver Stone and Ver Fire would allow me to engage with that more often. So, a lot of my problems with the Red Mage surprisingly have nothing to do with how much damage the job does, and everything to do with how it feels to play, and that in itself is unfortunate. I have to reiterate that the core gameplay loop of being a melee mage is awesome. Fighting at range with powerful spells to build up enough resources to dash in and use a melee combo is awesome, but there are little elements that are decorated around that core gameplay loop that aren't working as well as they should. Funnily enough, a lot of the changes I would like to see to the Red Mage, like giving a resource generation component to Fleesh and Contra 6, as well as potentially disconnecting engagement from displacement, would increase the job's damage output, which is something I don't think anyone would complain about. I don't know if anything will ever happen to the Red Mage in future patches, but if nothing changes, then I may end up putting it down and never picking it up again. With that said, I can still recommend the job to other people. When I did my ninja impressions, I said I couldn't recommend other people level the ninja because its damage output was so low, but what's interesting is the ninja's kit feels a lot more complete. In fact, I didn't have any problems with the way the job was designed, other than some resource generation issues. My main problem with the ninja was that the amount of work and effort it takes to learn and master the job doesn't feel in proportion to the amount of damage it does, and for me, that's a big deal. In the case of the Red Mage, the amount of damage it does is pretty low, but it's respectable, and the amount of work it takes to play the Red Mage doesn't feel overwhelming. But the kit for me feels like it's missing some things, and that's frustrating. And there we go, that's going to do it for my impressions of the Red Mage. Unfortunately, I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to, but I think it's okay. If I had to give it a score out of 10, I would give it a 7. So it's not great, but it's not horrible. I'm probably just not going to play it all that much until I eventually do an overview of it. With that in mind, there is still plenty more Final Fantasy XIV content coming to the channel, so be sure to stay tuned for that. If you're interested in some bonus content, there is a Q&A/AMA session linked in the description that I did a few days ago. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and if you'd like to support the channel even more, you can head over to patreon.com/iBluairJgR to become a patron. As always, the name of the game is Final Fantasy XIV, the name of the channel is iBluairJgR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.